Welcome to the Capital Blue Cross Theater and the live digital performance of Reclaiming My Time 2.0 by Maria James Chow. We are thankful that you took the time to join us for this live digital theater experience and discussion. During the show, if you have any thoughts, questions, or observations for our panelists, please feel free to open your Q&A and place them there. We are creating a safe space for all to share their thoughts and observations with respect and without judgment. This performance and discussion explores the bridge between the marginalization of Black women's voice from history to the present. We will ponder two questions. What role does higher education play in addressing systemic inequities? What do you do in your office, department, classrooms to create opportunities for diverse forms of expression and representation? The performance will begin in a couple minutes. Please check your volume and make sure you're going to be able to hear the actors, and enter into this performance with an open mind and an opportunity to learn. We'll see you soon.
Welcome everybody to the Capital Blue Cross Theater, its virtual stage. I am Janet Bixler, the theater director here at the Capital Blue Cross Theater at Central Penn College. And it is a real pleasure to see all of you in our audience. The actors are going to be very excited that you are all here. They are so eager to share this story with you. You are about to enter into a performance called Reclaiming My Time 2.0 by Maria James Chow. Reclaiming My Time is a choreo poem. So what you will be seeing are 20 poems that weave together to tell the bigger story of the bridge between the marginalization of the Black woman's voice from history to the present. At this time, I would like to welcome to the stage our president of Central Penn College, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi.
Janet, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for attending today's program. Earlier this summer, I issued an executive order as an institutional response to national events that outlines concrete action steps to advance diversity, inclusion, and equity practices here at Central Penn College. Now, these action steps seek to reveal how we as a college community can contribute to combating systemic racism. And the commission has been very hard at work over the last few months, and we are actually starting to implement some of these action steps. And as part of the commission's charge, offering programming and learning opportunities to help us to engage in some of this diversity and inclusion through processes becomes imperative. And we began offering programming late in October. We started with diversity, equity, and inclusion training in partnership with Leadership Harrisburg area and the Martin Luther King Jr. Institute. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a panel discussion on gun violence facilitated by the Attorney General's office. Today, on behalf of the President's Commission, I am very excited to continue these offerings with Reclaiming My Time 2.0. Now, I had the pleasure of watching the original performance of Reclaiming My Time back in 2018, and I was blown away by the moving stories of these brave women in our community. And the stories were put into this incredible art form by the remarkably talented Maria Chow and Janet Bixler, weaving their stories into lights and musical performances and spoken art word forms and poems, and it was absolutely magical. So I am thrilled that you all chose to be here this afternoon with us to hear these incredible stories and to strengthen your own view and perception of these critical issues still facing our society today. So I'd like to thank you, welcome you to our virtual stage, and Janet, Maria, thank you for putting this together for all of us this afternoon.
Dr. Fedrizzi, we are so thankful that not only you, but our school, Central Penn College, values the need for education around social justice and equity. At this point, I would like to introduce the actors to you because here in the virtual theater, we're not able to walk into the actual theater and receive a program to go through and read the bios. So let me take 3 minutes to introduce them, and then we will start the show. Following the show is our panel discussion with our poet playwright, Maria James Chow, and Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood, Chief Diversity Officer at Millersville University. A reminder, during the show, if you have a thought, open up your Q&A and put it in there. I will be monitoring that, so when we get to the panel discussion after the show, we can look at your questions or your thoughts. Let me introduce the actors to you now.
Morgan Littleford, an alum of Central Penn College with a degree in corporate communications, has been in several productions at Central Penn College's Capital Blue Cross Theater, such as the original 2018 Reclaiming My Time, the second student-created play Dreams and Nightmares, and Christmas Shorts. She's currently using her voice to speak up against injustices and helps with a nonprofit organization called Project Purpose. Sydney Rushing is a 13-year-old child actress who has been acting since she was 4 years old. Recently, she's been acting in commercials, movies, and now a choreo poem. Sydney Hoke is a local native who has always taken to theater. She has been in several productions at Central Penn College's Capital Blue Cross Theater, including the original 2018 production of Reclaiming My Time and Swords and Shakespeare. She is a wife, mom, and enjoys baking in her spare time. Kirsten Hyman is one of our original actors from the 2018 production of Reclaiming My Time. She is a wife, mother, sister, friend, veteran, social worker, and survivor. Currently, she is keeping herself busy doing yoga, making quilts, and dreaming of traveling again someday. Alethea Hines is one of our original actors from the 2018 production of Reclaiming My Time. She is a retired nurse and disabled veteran who has found real joy, fun, and therapy in and through acting. Amber Zambrana performed in the original 2018 production of Reclaiming My Time. She is a social worker, crime victim advocate with 17 years of experience in theater across central Pennsylvania. Adrian Thoman is the Dean of Student Engagement and part-time faculty at Central Penn College, who has performed in several productions at the Capital Blue Cross Theater, including the original 2018 production of Reclaiming My Time. Outside of CPC, she is co-creator of the Pirate Life podcast and doctoral student at Wilmington University. Robin Wilson has been in several productions at the Capital Blue Cross Theater, including the original 2018 Reclaiming My Time and Swords and Shakespeare. She leads the Peapod delivery team within the Retail Business Services ILC department. Robin currently resides in Harrisburg, PA, with her husband, Jose, where she is enjoying first-time motherhood with her baby boy, Amir.
And now, audience, Reclaiming My Time 2.0.
Sometimes you push it down.
Into the way, way deep, down.
Until it stops struggling, down.
Till it sinks down.
Until it seems like nothing at all.
Then somebody pulls a
trigger.
A word, a song, a scent.
It gets loose, bobs up to the surface.
Loaded with pain.
Putrid, unrelenting memory.
Ready to be reclaimed.
I don't think they heard us.
Maybe they didn't hear us.
They need to hear us.
We might need to repeat it.
We definitely want them to hear us.
Morgan?
Sometimes you push it down.
Into the way, way deep, down.
Till it stops struggling, down.
till it sinks down.
Till it don't seem like nothing at all.
Then somebody pulls a
Trigger.
A word, a song, a scent gets loose, bobs up to the surface.
Loaded with pain,
Putrid, unrelenting memory.
ready to be reclaimed.
Mom, don't it make you tired? Spent, drained, lied on, lied to, lied about? We're dismissed, distorted, viewed through a broken prism, a circus mirror. Mom, does your bucket feel empty? Kicked over, too much poured out. Is there a hole in it? Mom, do you ever feel tired? Sick deep down, too sick to rage or run. They killed 2 this week. One little girl saw it all from the back seat. Our protest erased by a lone gunman. Now we all carry the burden of his PTSD. Mom, how can they question the right we have to breathe? To breathe! Mom, you ever been this tired?
Honey, you don't know tired. Tired is my friend, my long road, my right here, my round the bend. Girl, you don't know tired. You just getting a glimpse. They told you the war was over and you chose to believe them. No, you don't know tired. I'm on a first name basis with this demon. It always been lying in wait, hoping you be too worn out to fight the hate. Go on, design those picket signs. Marching is for young folks. Don't give up. Don't give in. And for God's sake, honey, stay woke.
Don't get it twisted.
Excuse me?
Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. If you think this back is bent because it's weak, then you missed it. Don't think you know my story because my name isn't listed. My back is the bridge between your first breath and your last tomorrow.
My back bends to hold the weight of your sorrow. I stand up to stand back to gird you up, not to follow.
My yes sirs and no sirs kept you out of harm's way. I was your strength when you were afraid. When they met you with fists, who you think prayed?
Don't get it twisted. Don't think you know the story, because my name isn't listed. I'm not just giver of life, but I've risked it.
Clawed through cities and ruins when your hope was lost, shielded child eyes from each burning cross, covered your ears when those slurs were tossed. I stand in the shadow of your history, but don't forget mine.
I am pamphlet provider,
Path walker,
Prayer warrior,
Truth teller,
Grandmother,
wife,
aunt,
mom.
sister.
it's her story time.
I'll kindly remind the audience to maintain silence as the spellers receive their words and commence to spell. Thank you.
Racism. RACISM. Racism.
The best colored in the class can't be the best in the class. It shades their idea of the truth. Supremacy stands on weak legs in the presence of a little girl who can spell it correctly.
Supremacy. 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 The glint of the sun off my spelling bee trophy hurt their eyes, shook the ground under their feet.
The white kids must have been lazy that day.
The colored kid must have cheated.
No way she won.
Way she was diligent in her practice.
This is a do-over. This is not discrimination.
Discrimination. Discrimination. Discrimination. My parents didn't think we'd have to have this talk yet. Second grade is too soon when you live above the Mason-Dixon. Too soon to talk about mistakes adults make when feeling their old world eclipsed by brown faces. Too soon to talk about legalized hate, lies, segregation. 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 A little girl's brilliance was big enough to crush their stereotypes.
It took a long time for me to come back here to this river town where they tried to drown my voice.
Your parents didn't talk to you about the Mason-Dixon yet? My parents didn't talk to me about the reality of Jim Crow yet, because our parents were like shields against the heat of racism in our town. Our Black street was a dark iris, a life-giving pollen-filled center of a white flower. Our folks were respected professionals, educators, scholars. We were allowed in spaces our colored classmates couldn't go. So I hadn't formally met old Jim Crow. Until that day, my friend and I tried to board a bus home. With a sweet smile, I approached a white woman sitting alone and said,
Pardon me, ma'am, but your packages have claimed the last available seat. I'd like to rest these tired feet. Would you mind? Would you mind?
Maybe her ears are weak.
Pardon me, ma'am, but your packages have claimed the last available seat. I'd sure like to rest these tired feet. Would you mind?
Would you mind? Would you mind, ma'am? A minor move? A slight adjustment? A little room? Would you mind?
Ma'am, I think your ears are fine. I know you hear me. Your silly blue staring me in my face. All I asked for was a little space. Would you mind?
Would you mind? Would you mind moving your packages?
So I can have a seat?
Rest my feet?
Sit for a bit.
Would you mind?
Would you mind?
Her eyes narrowed, as did mine. This was about to get good, bad, and ugly. I slung her bags to the floor so fast, the driver slammed the brakes. She clutched her pearls in shock, and my friend's voice echoed like a drumbeat in my ears.
Go, Georgie, go! Go, Georgie, go! Go, Georgie, go!
Adrenaline carried us home on old, worn-out, handed-down school shoes. My friend said I could have gotten us locked up, or worse. Said I shouldn't have sassed that lady. Said, that's just the way it is. But she was wrong.
She was wrong.
That was my introduction. That's how I first met old Jim crow.
The letter came. The letter came.
We regret to inform you.
Regret to inform you.
With great sympathy.
Deepest apologies, but you.
Your kind cannot.
Have not been.
Will never.
Never, ever, ever.
Be accepted into our class.
College, university.
Polite society.
School spelling bee.
Although you seem qualified.
Met expectations.
Pass the poll test.
Fulfilled all the requirements.
We have never, ever.
Never, ever, ever.
Have no available.
Have filled our quota.
However,
This time.
Right now.
it's not the right time.
Go slow.
But by all means, try again.
Try again.
Again.
We're gonna have to do that shit again.
Because there's no way a Negro girl
No way a Negro girl
Has
broke through.
made the cut.
no way.
No way.
No colored.
No Negro.
No Jews.
No girls allowed.
No girls allowed.
No girls allowed.
No girls allowed? No Jews allowed? No Negroes allowed? I know that too well. I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car. After days of poking at Jim Crow, they called us Zip Dandy, agitators, Yankees, reported our checkerboard groove fest in the hotel, blacks and whites harmonizing like piano keys. It was Fat Tuesday in the Big Easy, but there's nothing easy about civil rights work. So I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car. My high-ho silver moment wasn't like the ones on TV. The Impala pulled up and legs swung over wrought iron balcony, thrown like Mardi Gras beads into a blanket of blackness. The growl of the engine, the bump, bump, boom of the rocky ground, the hollow hum of the radio ran over the hoot and holler of Clan on our tail. I was knocked around, but safe, tucked in the Impala's arms. I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car because my last ride left its footprints on my psyche. I was the passenger, my white friend driving. The fuzz pulled him out of the window, beat him bloody, called him kike, and kicked him, pulled our pixie hair friend from the back, beat her for looking like a boy, made us watch and learn why a Negro should never take a front seat. I left New Orleans in the trunk of a car.
Something about this don't sit right with me. I know. It's respect. It's the way it's always been. But I bound on that bus a newly blossomed flower. 16 years old with that light that lingers in your eyes when you know you have your whole life stretched out in front of you. At 16, joints and muscles listen to your commands. You can bounce out of bed after staying up half the night. 16 is strong. 16 is beauty. 16 is a privilege. So I don't understand why when I get on the bus, all the colored men rise like I'm the Queen of England. All the colored men rise trembling with age. The colored men rise, some leaning on canes. This one winces as he stands. This one's back remains crooked. I can hear the crack and the pop when this one struggles with a hat tip and a morning ma'am. I can't hardly look at him. All this pain for a child on a bus. I know they mean respect. I know it's just our way. But something about this. Just don't sit right with me.
Truth pours from his mouth. His voice, a chain linking us like notes to staff. He gives us more than a song. He gives us the beauty of sound to music, braided harmonies, uplifting, full. The occasional flat feeds the melody still. And we have nothing to return but amen and applause.
It was one of those sticky late summer days where everyone yearns for a pool or a cone. And there I stood with my mom pressed into the uncomfortable crowd, elbow to elbow, sweat to sweat, and a woman's voice said,
Tell him about the dream, Martin.
His voice was rich, full, and musical. It lingered in the air the way Georgia moss hangs ghostly from tree limbs. He painted an image of a world where white kids like me and Black kids in the next town, our neighbors, could link arms like brothers and sisters.
But I didn't understand the world we lived in yet. I didn't know what they went through over in Newark. I knew my suburban world. I knew my bike, my toys, my friends.
The ladies that my mom would bring home, scared, sick ladies, green-gilled with hands over bellies, ladies whose eyes ran from yours when introduced, ladies you didn't ask too many questions of. I didn't know the world these ladies came from or snuck back to, patched up and relieved.
5 years later, he was shot down. Just like Malcolm X and Jack Kennedy before him. I knew then the great gift Mom had given me that August day.
when a bullet struck Bobby, my heart was sick. I was old enough to see King's dream in him. For a while at school, each face was a drop of rain under a cloud of emotion created by a decade of loss.
In mourning, but with a sense of pride, I joined our band in honoring him with a song as they train carried his body to rest through our town. I thought of all the hope we held in Bobby in his brother and Dr. King. All the hope those ladies had in my mother.
I embraced the dream she lived, the dream she drug me out to learn about one sweltering day in Washington.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
Daddy say they killed a king last night, right up the street at the Lorraine Motel. Or is it that way? That way? I can't remember how to get home. Jimmy was supposed to come get me, but he didn't. Left me lost in this crazy. I ain't never seen grown-ups act like this. I ain't never seen Daddy cry that way. He say they killed a king last night. Is it this way? That way? Jimmy!
Jimmy!
Where are you at?
Where are you at?
Smoke turn eyes red as rage, sting like hate words.
Choke the cries out your mouth.
We were teetering on the edge of giving up.
Now falling over.
Is this the judgment Mama pray about?
Jimmy, don't leave me!
Jimmy, don't leave me!
You gotta come get me! Jimmy, where you at?
Jimmy, where you at?
I can't see where I'm going!
Can't see where we're going. Everybody lost sight of the mountaintop in the dream.
Cause Daddy say they killed a king last night.
Crash!
Broken glass, shattered hope.
Fire is a monster. It roars and eats.
Chases too.
It has great clawed fingers to bring down buildings.
Wipe out lives.
Blow up dreams.
Oh God, Jimmy, where you at?
Where you at?
Where do I run to?
Where do I run to?
Our neighborhood is a volcano's belly.
Pieces of us scattered all around.
Everybody fighting or crying.
Should I be running or hiding? Just sit here and fold into myself till my brother come get me. He ain't dead. He ain't hurt. He coming.
He coming.
God, he coming to get me. God, please send Jimmy come get me.
Come back. Where you at?
Jimmy, big brother, come back.
Mobtown's eruption wasn't spontaneous, a spark in the dark. It was a slow burn. Decades of racism, like a black mold, crept in crevices of courts to city government buildings. A chasm of hopelessness deepened by the sound of that Memphis bullet, reverberated off the walls of our mind. Crooked cops were the gas. City corruption struck the match. And when Martin fell, flames rose up like mighty arms enveloping my city. The eerie orange glow of crackling fire, broken glass, screams, tears, demands thrown up to the divine. They came for my daddy, a leader who could gather men to fill up buckets to put the fires out. But city waters can't extinguish a century of pain, of feeling like a second-class citizen in the land of the so-called free.
Crumbling, paint peeling, glass standing between yesterday and tomorrow. I seen him stuff my childhood into a brown beer bottle, set it aflame and set it afire. I seen it. I seen it go up in smoke, glass between me and an aging white frame city, throbbing with rage like my heart, beating the rhythms of fear and freedom songs. I seen it. It starts slow, like old tree roots under concrete. I seen it simmer, then sizzle, bubble up, boil, then burn. I seen it blow. I seen it blow. I seen it blow.
I seen it blow.
When they refused her service,
Refused her service.
then caught her foot in that door.
Caught her foot in the door.
When they hung that boy like a fish in his cell.
Like a fish in his cell.
When they got
Malcolm.
Martin.
Jack.
Bobby.
I seen it. I seen childhood spark turn dark. I seen teachers turn tail. The river become a wall. The colored boys went rage blind, but me, no, I seen it through my white frame window, crumbling, burning, my safe place, dying. Like his heart hit by hate's bullet, mixed up in southern scents of flesh and magnolia. I seen it through my white framed window.
When it happened, when that shot shook the world, she didn't duck her head in fear. She flew into the back seat, reached out as if she could grab a piece of him, paste him back together. A piece of scattered potential, a piece of shattered tears, a piece of America's hope. That's what we do when tragedy strikes. Women reach out, pick up pieces, glue and paste lives back together. This book, it's me in the back seat. Each press clipping, headline, colored paper and fabric, every picture of our blown apart tomorrow.
Jackie and Ethel Kennedy.
Mrs. Evers. Mrs. Shabazz.
Mrs. King. And me. Connected by Mod Podge and blood.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
She was a single mother. So you think you know her story? Moynihan blamed her, called for national action. She was destroying the family.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
She and my daddy pledged allegiance to the flag. He left to fight for its promise and returned to a country that still hated Negroes.
A country that went from roaring to wasting away. Veteran status didn't mean much when jobs were few, and white men were struggling too.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
She assumed his service was worth something. Daddy yearned to provide for the six of us. He marched up to the White House, stood tall, and demanded a job.
He walked right up to that red, white, and blue and told Uncle Sam the ticker tape wouldn't cut it. He deserved life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
She shielded our ears when they spit back.
That Negro's got nerve.
Nerve to demand what he was promised.
Demand that this country lives up to its creed.
Demand his right to equality.
She shielded our ears when they said he should have kneeled. He should have been humble. He should have bowed.
She covered our eyes when they buried him, when they wrapped him in white and buried him so deep in St. Elizabeth Hospital that we never saw him again.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
My mother rose up to provide, to care, to feed, to discipline, to love the six of us, and they call her
Matriarch.
Sapphire.
Welfare queen.
for her trouble.
Black woman, how dare you be so strong?
Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama said.
Mama said, Mama said.
Mama said there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama said.
Mama said, Mama said.
Mama said.
Mama said.
Mama said.
Mama said. Mama said. Good Jewish girls are mouse meat with high-collared modesty, clean, white-gloved hands, smart enough to pan for gold in institutions of higher husbands. Get one while you can. Get one while you can.
Be grateful, Mama said.
Good Jewish girls sing praises for greater Bashert.
Sang years before old Negroes got spiritual. We overcame. We overcame. Pain deeper, wider, more outstretched, Mama said.
Good Jewish girls don't link arms like unbreakable chains, turn bodies into walls, block passageways, block police, end up in burning buses, southern jail cells, or the unforgiving grasp of the Mississippi.
Schwan should have known better. Goodman should have known better, Mama said.
Good Jewish girls don't walk with men with dreams, don't take it to the street, don't get loud as psychedelic peace on homemade picket signs, don't braid flame with bra, demand change, or
Kill their mothers with shame. Kill their mothers with shame, Mama said.
Good Jewish girls, don't write about free love. Shout about freedom. Think about revolution. Get barred from graduation. Kvetch like that Rodham girl over at Wellesley. Don't be like those yentas at Wellesley.
Mama said.
But months melt into years, and memories become history. Her sun was setting. Mama said her sun was setting. More yesterdays lay behind her than tomorrows before her. And a rainbow of neighbors held promise in wide open hearts, outstretched arms. Mama said.
Perhaps pain is pain, and depth doesn't matter. Life does. Maybe that dreamer was right, righteous, good.
As her light began to dim, she saw me. Mama saw me. My mother saw me. Clearly.
Can't believe that. Did you see them?
They should not be in public that way.
Oh, is it illegal?
Her mother has to be so ashamed.
Oh, I don't even think about what her mother is saying.
I learned our love was against the law from dumbfounded, slack-jawed faces in a diner, from a nose poked around a library book, from a raised eyebrow and a stare half hidden behind store shelves. Whispers wandered with us through sun rays like dust. From the day we met in Guam, where I taught, he was light. Without him, there was no morning. I never knew that the way the inside of me yearned for the inside of him was considered radical back home. My hand fit perfectly in his. My grandmother wiped his stain from hers. My face brought back a frightening memory to his mother's past, and she embraced us anyway. They say I grew up privileged, far from the luscious green palms of our treasured island, away under the protective umbrella of a Midwestern town of 500 souls, away from the gripe and the grumble of our country's belly. I never felt the hunger to march, the need to fight. A Navy man serving commander-in-chief, he broke America's law by loving me. Under thatched roofs, our union approved by the grin and giggle of the brown children I taught. I learned of our crime when we returned home, where locals had eyes like cameras with the shutters stuck on our freakish joy, as if when we pushed their button, they'd spit our picture from their mouths. But I had the privilege of not knowing much more than that. Not the way my sons know the way it feels to be the only one, to be policed, underestimated, irrationally feared. In a photo I hold close, I embrace their late father in the green shade of Guam. In our matching caramel-colored Chinese leather coats, our eyes glowing with the bright anticipation of our
Oh,
forever. He is black, and I am white. I am privileged. Privileged to hold him for the rest of our lives, privileged to bring forth his beautiful sons, privileged to hear his voice from their mouths, to see his smile on their faces, in their eyes. If our love breaks your law, so be it.
I can't even believe everything I just heard. How could someone have to escape the state in the trunk of a car? A little girl got caught in a riot. A man got sent to a mental hospital just for demanding what he was promised, his rights that everyone else had.
What's wrong, honey? You don't look right. Like something just got free, let loose, bobbed up to the surface of your reality. Painful, putrid, unrelenting thoughts that won't stay way, way in the deep down. Let it out, honey. What's wrong?
I didn't know, tired mama. I mean, your value, your talent, your possibilities. They viewed through a kaleidoscope, twisting you into a broken image, distorting the dream like a circus mirror. Mama, I didn't know, tired. Spent, drained, threatened by violence just for where you sat, learned, loved. Your worth shaded by the heavy hood of bigotry. Mama, I'm sorry, I never knew tired. Empty, too sick to rage or run. Bucket kicked over, poured out. But nevertheless, you persisted.
Oh, so you woke, stretched out the kinks and looked up to the sun, got a glimpse of the eclipse and it burnt your eyes. Once woke, you can't get tired. Too many generations of women, the enslaved, church mothers, abolitionist, suffragist survivors. There's been far too many of them lifting me up for me to fall back. Because of them, I resist and hope for you, I persist. But this stuff going on now, honey, we've seen before. This ain't nothing new. Marching is for young folk. We fought our fight, and now it's your turn. Everyone has that time they can claim, that time that won't turn back, that moment when everything changed. What was it for you?
The night the fuse blew. A fuse blew the night we found out. It was right before the rains came, beating on the glass panes like this, like heads on concrete. A fuse blew the night we found out. So we sat in the dark, hot expanse of a warehouse behind a coffee house. Espresso and art energized the stage.
Sankofa was purple from passion and pain.
Dustin took us there all night and all day.
Priestess struck us like lightning.
Soul Cry made you want to taste the rainbow.
And then a voice cried out from a darkened stage.
It hid Tiger's face like a hood.
Yo, I'm black as hell and I know y'all can't see me.
No one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come.
No one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come.
No one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come.
No one can see a black boy in the dark when the rains come.
And the night was as heavy and thick as Shane's poems are true. Indeed, we heard it then from lips that had just spit the deepest wisdom, a ghetto-issued proclamation, a herald to we the scribes. We almost clapped out of habit. We almost snapped out of habit. We almost snapped out.
And we had heard it then. Smartphones buzzed like Black women on the back pew. We shared a gasp, exchanged curses, questioned the verdict.
George Zimmerman, not guilty?
Not guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
A fuse blew.
A fuse blew.
A fuse blew.
A fuse blew. Say their names.
Bravo, bravo, ladies. Audience, that is the actual end of our choreo poem, Reclaiming My Time. The actors are coming back on stage for their curtain call, for their bow. Thank you. So I'm going to say the actors' names, and they're going to give a wave so you can connect them with the information you received at the beginning. Sydney Hoke, Amber Zambrana, Morgan Littleford, Kirsten Hyman, Alethea Hines, Sydney Rushing, and Adrian Thoman, and Robin Wilson. Thank you, actors. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your talent. Thank you for your dedication to Maria's work, to the true stories of the women who shared their stories with Maria. And thank you for working with technology. At this time, I'd like to begin our panel discussion and enter into the conversation of building a bridge between the marginalization of the Black woman's voice from history to the present. And now, as our actors go off into the green room for a little bit, I would like to introduce our panelists to you.
Maria James Chow, poet, playwright, is the creative writing teacher at the Capital Area School for the Arts. Previously, she was professor at Central Penn College for 16 years. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Communication with a minor in Ethnic Studies, as well as a Master of Science in Communication from Shippensburg University, and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, Poetry from Goddard College. She is a published performance poet and playwright who wrote Reclaiming My Time, the American Griot Project, and coined the phrase historiographic poetics, a form of poetry that sheds light on historical events. This dynamic spoken word artist is also the author of 3 collections of poetry and has been teaching creative writing workshops in the community for 20 plus years. Maria James Chow, in the words of Audre Lorde, poetry is not a luxury. It is my weapon against injustice, a flaming sword in the fight for equality. Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood is the Chief Diversity Officer for Millersville University. She has served in various positions at Penn State University Harrisburg campus for 30 years. Prior to retirement, she was the Senior Director of Student Affairs and Engagement. She has earned a Bachelor of Science in Therapeutic Recreation from Cheyney University, a Master of Science in Counseling from Shippensburg University, a Master of Divinity from Virginia Union University, the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, and a Doctorate in Adult Education from the Pennsylvania State University. She holds certifications in intercultural communications and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace from Cornell University. She is a certified life coach and has a limited private practice specializing in premarital counseling. Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood, she contributes her life's foundation to her mother, who instilled in her a faith tradition that shows love for all people.
Ladies, welcome to the virtual stage of the Capital Blue Cross Theater. Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood, poet, playwright, Maria James Chow. Let's begin our panel discussion with Maria sharing with us how it is that she came to birth the project of Reclaiming My Time, an American Griot project, why it was so important to do. Maria?
Well, first, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And the actors put on an amazing show. So thank you so much. Thank you for your direction, Janet. And so how did this come to be? Several years ago, I was on a trip down south with my parents. I was an adult. We were visiting some friends that my dad had been friends with for decades. And the men sat in the living room, boisterously exchanging stories of their glory days. And for them, that's the civil rights movement. They talked about marches. They talked about police violence. They talked about meeting Malcolm X. The women sat in the kitchen chatting quietly. And for the first time, I decided to go hang with the women. And I started hearing stories about their roles during the civil rights movement. My mother had never shared her stories with me. And those of you that were really engaged in that poem, The Trunk, I left New Orleans in the trunk of a car, that was my mother's story. So I had never heard those stories, and why? And I asked them, and they expressed that men have been so degraded and disrespected. It was the women's job to affirm them. And by propping them up and not talking about themselves, they step back into the shadows. So this really affected me, and then I started asking questions. And that's when I developed the oral history project, that I call the American Griot Project. I met women ages 60 to 95 and asked them about their experiences, their memories. They were urban and suburban. They were Black and white, Christian and Jewish. It was a diverse array of women. But something I noticed that they had in common, and you heard it in the poem Letters. We are sorry to inform you that even though you are very qualified, even though you passed the poll test and the spelling bee, no, we don't have room for you. And that was common, regardless of the situation, in employment, in schooling, being rejected for something that you were highly qualified or even overqualified for. It was very common. Those feelings of rejection. There's so many stories of that. And my mother's as well. So this dismissal was repeated throughout their lives. But even today, when we're chiseling through glass ceilings and we demonstrate our power as Black women, our political power just got a Black East Asian woman in the White House. And yet, some people would rather say that, see, you got something, now shut up and sit down. Like, we don't have to hear anymore. And so that's why it was so important to allow our voices to be heard, to not let these women go into that good night without us knowing their stories.
Thank you, Maria. And now, Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood, if you would like to share some opening remarks in regards to our topic of building a bridge between the marginalization of the Black woman's voice from history to the present. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and greetings, Central Penn. Greetings, President Linda, Janet, Maria, and all the actors. I want to thank you because your gift spoke to my soul today. Thank you to the staff, the faculty, and the students of Central Penn for allowing me to share some thoughts with what I think I'm going to align with the wonderful artistic experiential presentation that we witnessed here this afternoon. There's much I could say, many roads that I could go down, but I only have 5 minutes. And you heard the questions, the filtering questions. What role does higher education play in addressing systemic inequalities? And what do you do in your departments, your classrooms, your organizations to create opportunities for diverse forms of expression and representation? Well, let me begin by sharing a mantra of my mother. Go to school, get a good job. Go to school, get a good job. Go to school, get an education, get a good job. Go to school, go to school. You see, back in my schooling days, there was thought to be a correlation between higher education and upward mobility. So I went to school. I sojourned through the halls of the academy. I graduated with multiple degrees from institutions of higher learning. I got a good job, but I did not receive equal pay. My non-Black colleagues made a minimum of more than $7,000 annually for the same scope of work and the same work responsibilities. So I pose to you a question to address the question of higher education and social inequalities. Does the institution, does the tradition, the foundation, the organization of higher education acknowledge the role of internal and external practices, policies, and procedures of social inequalities? Let me raise a quote just for the next 10 minutes that I have. Okay, I know it's only 5. From a scholar, a local scholar by the name of Dr. Katina Moten. In her doctoral dissertation, she explores social inequalities that Black women leaders face in education. Dr. Moten quotes this: Black women who have ascended to the upper echelons of higher education leadership were not provided direct access to the roadmap for navigating higher education, and therefore spent countless hours understanding the treacherous terrain of academia. She identifies obstacles to success for Black women in higher ed. Overt obstacles being stereotyping, biases, both conscious and unconscious, prejudice, behaviors, exclusion, and discrimination, coupled with the covert obstacles entrenched in the policies and practices of the institution. Dr. Moten's dissertation was written, presented, approved, and added to the literature in 2019. I know you thought I was talking about 1920 something. In 2015, there were similar claims by professors of Western Michigan University and Chicago School of Professional Psychology when they surveyed the literature on obstacles of Black women in higher education. They found that most of the studies indicate that a majority of women in the academy in leadership positions, especially women of color, have experienced exclusion, isolation, dismissal, communication challenges, lack of validation or appreciation, and failure to receive their due credit. Now, one more, just I want to give you one more. The World Health Organization weighs in and defines gender disparity as any distinction, exclusion, or restriction made by or on the basis of socially constructed gender roles, and views gender disparity as an intersection of economic equality, racial, or ethnic hierarchy. You heard it yourself by the actors today. There is a plethora of literature that suggests the few women who make it over the hurdles still find pushback from additional barriers related to their performance, their interpersonal relations, their ability to network, and repressive tolerance. Now, I know what the World Bank says, and when they examine social inclusion, they identified the governance indicator by the way, the indicator of voice and accountability. And when I think about that, it holds relevance to the discussion that we're having today of women's access to leadership roles, the invisibility, and specifically of women of color in the academy and in leadership positions is tantamount to exclusion and denial of women's voices, which indicates a lack of accountability on the part of leaders. Without audible voices, women cannot expect their issues, their concerns, their innovation, their intuition, their creativity, their ingenuity to receive thorough exploration, value assessment, incorporation, or resolution. So what do we say to these things? Where do we go from here? How do we reclaim our time? How do we begin to think about what we need to think about in our offices, in our departments, in our classrooms, in our communities to create opportunities for diverse forms of expression? I know that there are many opinions about this as there are people viewing this presentation. We all have opinions, and even more so, we all have our beliefs about the findings. But I submit to you, as agents of the Academy, no matter where we find ourselves on the continuum, there is one thing that we can do. We can do, and we can do in a neutral, from a neutral framework. We can look, L-O-O-K, look at the landscape, L, the landscape scan, review the context, national context, regional context, campus context as relates to the happenings of social inequality. Look, O, operational assessment, examine the policies, practices, and procedures in which you have the sphere of influence. O, othering, invest in othering. Explore, engage in historical discourse outside of the ink and paper history books. Check out the dimensions of diversity. Who's missing? Who's recruited? Who's retained? Who makes tenure? Who's missing in administration? Who's being groomed for leadership positions? Who's creating the culture and the climate? K, keepers, identify and keep high impact policies, practices, and procedures that align with inclusive excellence. Identify and exercise the factors that promote the values and dimensions of diversity, equality, and inclusion. Keep picking up, keep putting and pasting together, keep lifting up, keep reaching out, keep learning up, keep learning across. And I believe one day we will reclaim our time because we will see justice for all roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Thank you for your attention and your response concerning this matter.
Well, thank you, Dr. Brown Haywood. That was inspiring. It was really beautiful how you brought your offerings to a place of an acronym of LOOK, L-O-O-K. Look, where are our women? Where are our Black women? Where are their voices being heard? And make sure to accept the other, to welcome in the other, to look out, to bring in the other, and to keep yourself accountable and to do what you have to do to keep those women in your presence. You gave so many takeaways, right, in your small moment of sharing. Now, Maria, is there something you would like to bring to the surface, either as a result of what Dr. Brown Haywood has shared, or something you'd like to reference in our questions that we're posing to our audience?
Well, when it comes to looking, part of the problem is that sometimes people do look and they want to blame the situation on the person that is being discriminated against. And so that is one side. And then the other side is that some people don't want to look. But you should look and ask yourself the question, like, what is happening? For instance, the fact that Black and brown women are 4 to 5 times more likely to die in childbirth in America. Look at that. Why? or how they did a study in the 1619 project of medical students who actually believed in eugenics. They believed that Black women didn't have as much pain as white people. And so because of those kinds of things, Black women are dismissed by doctors as like drug seekers or something. I personally, and a lot of Central Penn folk may know this story, I personally was sent home and told, oh, you don't seem that bad, when I had been in pain for several days, ended up right back in the hospital, didn't I, with a cyst that erupted and nearly killed me.
Yes,
So,
I was there.
yeah, you were there. You were
It
there.
was ridiculous what was happening in the ICU room where
A
you were.
cyst that they had actually seen on the scan. So even though you have something inside you the size of a grapefruit and you say you've been in pain for days, you'll be all right, go home. So this type of thing happens all the time. And that's why Black women are dying in childbirth. Black women are actually more likely to die, 3 times more likely to die of the coronavirus than anyone else. Black American women. And as we mentioned, the inequality in pay, Black women earn 62 cents to the dollar, to every dollar that a white man earns. I mean, that is reality. We can choose not to look at it. But if you look, then you have to start asking questions. Why? And why for so long? Because Malcolm X even said the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. And he said that 55 years ago. What is taking so long?
So Ms. Maria and Dr. Brown Haywood, as we look at our experience that we're sharing in right now, we know it is a professional development for my colleagues at Central Penn College. And with professional developments, we always look for takeaways. You have shared so many takeaways, and I would just like to touch base again with my colleagues and mention a large takeaway from this experience and listening to both of you is look within yourself. Now that you have heard the true stories through the poems offered by the actors, and you are now hearing really strong academic information about the discrepancies and the biases towards Black women, look within yourself. What do you believe? What do you need to know more of? What do you need to do to help right the wrongs? The righting of the wrongs can be big, like having a vice president that is a Black East Asian woman, but it can be small too.
Each individual student you're engaging with.
Right. May I suggest that it's a critical look, and not just a look that has been filtered and or painted by what we know or how we have been socialized. I think it's a critical look, and sometimes we need an ally or someone to help us look critically internally when we're trying to, I'm not going to say dismantle, because this is not about dismantling self. It's about critically looking at self and then making and being aware of further opportunities to put the pieces and paste them back together again, to look at the pieces and look at the things that have been outside of the margin of your paragraph and now include them in your paragraph. So it's a critical thing, and it might be painful, but it's worth it.
Can I just say that when I first started teaching, I was very young, I think 29 maybe. And I noticed something in myself that I wasn't really conscious of before, hadn't really thought of before. I noticed that I could not tell the names of students that were thin and blonde. Didn't know their names. Everybody was Becky or something. I mean, straight up, I'm admitting it. It was the truth. Now, if she was chubby, I don't know her name. I know all about her. We had some favorite TV shows we liked. We shopped at the same place. But a skinny, pretty, blonde young lady, didn't know her name. So I had to stop and look at myself, say, why is this? Why is this happening? I had to look at my history. What has been my experience? What fed into that? What have I been watching? What media have I been watching? And what has it been saying? How did that build me into this person who sees them as invisible? And that's what you have to do your work. My friend Julia Malley, she says, do your work. Okay. You can buy t-shirts.
Gotta do the work. That's it. I call that the kinship syndrome. The kinship syndrome. If it's my kin, if it looks like me, if it talk like me, if it walk like me, then I will notice. They will be in the forefront of everything that I do. But that's the same kinds of stereotypes that our K through 12 and our college students go through. The kinship syndrome. And they're made invisible by the unconscious biases that educators bring to the classroom a lot of times. That's why it's so important for us to look at ourselves critically. What is it that we have? What biases, what prejudice, what stereotypes do we bring? A stereotype being the belief, the prejudice being the act, and the discrimination being the act of, or the prejudice being the feeling and the discrimination being the act. What, if we look at that triad, what is it about us and what are we bringing as it relates to that? So then we can definitely be able to critically think of ourselves. I am now in partnership with a white male who wants to know more about being an accomplice. He wants to go beyond being an outlier. He said, just let me be an accomplice, because I want to lift up my voice and pay some of my privilege to the struggles that I see Black women going through in the academy. And you got to be willing to give and work. And I got to do my own work. Just like Maria said, I got a whole lot of own work myself to do, because that's a new phenomenon for me.
And also the reality, which is a takeaway, I hope, for anyone that may need to hear it, is when we give, like the colleague you mentioned, when we give, we're always going to get more back. Because often there's the fear that, oh, if I enter into that uncomfortable place of recognizing, valuing, giving passage to another person rather than myself, then I'm going to lose out. But the truth is, if I actively make space, make a platform for, provide a microphone for, if I take those actions and give, I will get more back in return. We have some questions from our audience. We have some congratulations coming out to Maria, our poet playwright, going out to the actors. We have some questions from your colleague, Michael Liro Limpi, Maria. He wants to know, if you were to, quote unquote, update your choreo poem, Reclaiming My Time, of what has happened since publishing it in 2018, knowing that the poems are from women who lived during the civil rights movement, are there stories you would want to go after to add into the anthology of Reclaiming My Time?
I might interview Dr. Felicia Brown Hayward. So I know she's seen some things. And some of the amazing ladies in the AKAs and the links in our area. There's some tremendous people. And then maybe even expand to, I'm intrigued by, like, Kamala Harris's story, how her mother came as an immigrant and worked hard, and now look where her daughter is, so many things. So there's always more in this story. I'm always running into women I think about Norleen Duncan in Harrisburg, also just who lived in Birmingham when 4 little girls were killed in that Baptist church bombing. I mean, I just keep running into people with amazing stories that should be told.
And
So
I'm
Mhm.
so sorry to interrupt, Maria. Thinking about what you're just sharing in Michael's question, looking to the present, the experiences that Black women, specific experience that they are going through, when we look at police brutality and the deaths of Black men, and then the women who are left.
Well, I would also think we need to emphasize too the women that have also died from police brutality. We need to say their names because too many times they're forgotten. And so that's really important. And I read a statistic that said that, there was 250 Black women that were killed by police, and the police all got off. There was like 4 or 5 white women that were killed by police, and the police were they got justice for that. The police got in trouble for it. So why do we have to say Black Lives Matter? Because you seem to not know this.
As we are coming to the time when our event will end, I'm going to encourage and ask all the actors to come back on stage. In a moment, I would like to give Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood some final thoughts, and then there is a question for the actors. So actors, go ahead and come on back on stage. So here is a comment, Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood, from our Megan Peterson. Taking a critical look, not assuming that we as higher education professionals have the answers just because we have letters after our name. We need to listen and be willing to hear tough feedback. So Megan is one of our colleagues here at Central Penn College, making the point that those of us that are in higher ed need to listen and be willing to hear the tough feedback from our colleagues and individuals that are not white, that need a place. Would you like any final statements to that?
I agree 100% with that. And that's creating safe learning spaces. That's what I said. We have to keep learning up and learning across and creating those safe learning spaces. We then can find our identity, because right now our identity has been stolen by psychological unsafe places, by psychological unmeaningful places, by psychological places that don't allow us the ability to gain the capacity to work in those uncomfortable places. So we, particularly as women, need to understand and need to do that I call them eggshell issues. But those eggshell issues get us not just to scrambled eggs, but it get us to other ways of making meaning in life, about life, for undergirding and supporting one another.
Oh my goodness, we could do a whole panel discussion on that, Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood.
That's on eggshell issues alone. Tough conversations, as my colleague said. Dare to talk. I'm reading a book right now called So You Want to Talk About Race. And I'm encouraging my entire staff to read that, and the president of my college to read that, so that we can have discussions, because I am going to do a survey based on how they align what's in that book with what's in their mind.
Oh my goodness, thank you for that takeaway. So to the actors, we will close our time together with a question also from our professor, Lyra Olympy. And oh my, I hope I didn't lose it, Professor Lyra Olympy. I don't know where the question went.
It moved to answered because someone answered his question.
Oh, Well, I love that, Morgan Little Ford, for telling me things. So his question was, reclaiming my time. How did the lines of the poems resonate with you? What did they make you feel while you were delivering those lines? Could you identify with what you felt apart from the sheer experience and emotion inside the words? Or what memories or mental images did you experience? So that's a lot. Does one of the actors, now one of the actors already answered, Mike Lero Olympi, but is there any actor that would like to respond?
I can say something.
Okay, Morgan.
So I know for the last one, which is a Fuse Blue, and that talks about Trayvon Martin. And that for me, for my generation, that was the first big one. My mom likes to say that's when I woke up, because I remember everything. I remember the jury. I remember how they talked to the Black woman who was his friend on the phone. I remember everything about that. So doing that one, that definitely brings up a lot of emotions. And to see it still happening with people like George Floyd, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, and things like that, it makes you want to do shows like this, and it makes you want to have these conversations, because it's always still happening, and we need to get to a point where it's done with.
So I don't want to put our young actor Sid on the spot, but I will. And Sid, if you don't want to answer, just feel free. But if you do want to answer, how has your perspective changed regarding the larger social issues before having worked on this piece of theater to now having gone through it and experiencing the words and wisdom of the poet, playwright, as well as Dr. Brown Haywood?
Yes, I responded to a question that was kind of similar to that, like how I felt after, and I feel like pretty different because I think that I've seen like all this stuff going around, but I haven't really like it felt like kind of like I was living it since I was also reciting the poems. So it was just like a different feeling of it. And yeah, I think I have a different perspective now. Actually, I think I have like the same perspective because even before the choreo poem, I was like going to protest and stuff and thinking about like stuff similar to this. So yeah, I think I have like pretty much the same perspective.
Okay. Yes, Miss Alethea.
I think I answered one of the questions from the viewer when asked about how we, felt about this play, and I said that Lost in the Maddening Crowd, which the one that Sid was the little girl. I was in the first grade when Martin Luther King died, and I was at school, and they let us out early, and it was chaos. And and that play, it did trigger me because I can remember my brother didn't show up, like normal to pick me up because there was so much stuff going on. He probably couldn't find me. And I found my way to my Uncle Jimmy's house. And it was that name in the play that triggered me. I was like, oh my God, and I can remember, even to this day, my mom, like, I don't even know how you found your way to Jimmy's house, at 6 years old. But I said, I remember landmarks, despite, people running to and fro and screaming and crying and in shock and chaos. And it triggered me. That particular story triggered me, so much, because I didn't know what was going on as a young child. We don't feel that connection to stuff that's going on around us, but the children today do because they have technology at their fingertips. And when my young granddaughters were here for Thanksgiving week, my youngest is the one that was here, that was the youngest here, was the same age as Sid. She's 13. And I sat down and shared, the stories with them. And that particular one, I was able to share with them and say, this is my story right here. I said, this is what happened to me as a young girl, Martin Luther King, and I was able to, they knew about Trayvon Martin, but I was saying, these people are real people. These stories are real stories, and people are still living these stories. You guys are living in a historical time now. You're going to be sharing these stories today with your grandchildren. It's nothing new.
As it says in the poem. There was a question to some of the other actors, if you'd like to speak up. Oh gosh, I keep moving around. Those of you actors who were in the original staged performance when we performed at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater in the round, the question is, does this performance on the virtual stage feel any different given the current climate of our country and also the format?
Answer that one.
Yeah, Sydney Hoke.
I just kind of feel like the more recent events kind of solidify why this is so important, why it shouldn't just be for, collective theater goers or those who are interested in dramas. I feel like it should be something used, I guess, even as an educational tool. For instance, I work with a girl who is a refugee from Yugoslavia. She came here, I believe, in like 1990s, like early 1990s. She has her citizenship. We actually just had a conversation about the show a few weeks ago. And I was like, Sasha, do you know that, brown-skinned people weren't even allowed to read books? We were slaves. And she had no idea. And I'm like, how in the world did you get this citizenship and you have no idea what's going on as far as American history is concerned? And so that just made it so much more important to me. Like, yes, it was virtual, we're adapting, but the importance behind it is still the same.
And you bring up a really good point, Sydney. Until the schools are willing to teach all of American history, there will still be people saying it's not important to listen because it's not on their radar, and it was never impressed upon them that this is real history.
That's why Kendi wrote the book that he wrote with becoming an anti-racist, and now they're becoming an anti-racist curriculum out there for K through 12 and for college students. And I just like to say one other thing. I'm supposed to be somewhere else at this time, but it's okay because I just called them and told them I'll be here. But I charge everyone that comes into my sphere of influence to be an inclusive strategist. Be an inclusion strategist. And that means you empower people, you empower learners to make an inclusion decision every day and practice that. And know that it's not just a checkbox in a compliance or a check compliance box, but if it's a lifestyle. Because you're a strategist and now you're an inclusive strategist. And everybody I see within the sphere of my little Hollywood boxes here, I do declare you as an inclusive strategist.
Thank you. I wrote that down because I think Miss Adrian and I, we teach a class and we're so excited to have our students in the audience today. Hello, friends. That's a brilliant takeaway for our college students. At this point, I am going to say thank you to the actors. I'm going to say thank you to our playwright, our poet, Maria James Chow, to our panelists and supporter, Dr. Felicia Brown Haywood. Thank you, Dr. Linda Fedrizzi, president of Central Penn College, for welcoming this experience into the college and supporting it. Thank you, the Links Harrisburg chapter, for supporting our work. And thank you so much to all of you in the audience who came out, experienced theater on the Zoom platform, and stuck around to engage with us during our panel discussion. And I hope we can all move forward being inclusion strategists. We walk forth and we open up. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.